Michael Page, he was a minus 115 favorite to open, minus 105 comeback for Ian Garry. If we're taking a look at the live odds right now, heading back to the big screen, it's substantially in favor of Ian Garry. Minus 155 with the plus 130 comeback for Michael Page. Now, this is where it gets really fascinating, AJ, because when I was taking a look at the internets, you know what I mean? I was just browsing the internets, and I was seeing that everybody is on MVP. Everybody. And I'm not going to say that when I see that, I'm like, let me deter my pick. But when I see that, I'm like, okay, well, what are they seeing that I'm not? Because yes, MVP styled on Kevin Holland, who I thought the step up in competition would just be too much, but we see he's a very difficult puzzle to solve. And he has a lot of tools that he can use to really kind of trick and fool Ian Garry, because there's only one MVP, and there's a lot of traditional kickboxers like Ian Garry. But age is a big factor right here. Experience is a big factor in the highest of shows. And I think the biggest thing that you got to take a look at, man, look at these numbers, man. You got a big reach advantage for Michael Page, but you're slower than Ian Garry, right? You're 37 years old. The man is 10 years younger than you. AJ, I don't want to have to pull out the numbers, but this isn't a title fight. In title fights, 170 pounds and below, the person who is 35 years plus, their record of winning is fucking abysmal, right? So you look at Ian Garry, he's a little bit of a better grappler, right? I'm not saying that MVP doesn't have good defensive grappling, but better grappler. More well-rounded overall, younger, youth, vigor, all that stuff, confidence. But MVP, man, he is the definition of a stylist. Funky style, and he will style on you. But look at this number right here. This is the final thing, and I'm going to let you take over. Double the output. Ian Garry has double the output of MVP. And I'm not saying that Ian Garry is some prolific striker that the world has never seen before, but MVP is a point fighter. Pick at you, get out. Raymond Daniels style, right? And when you get into the mix-em-up, he has to force Ian Garry to fight that style. And I think it can happen. That's what he made Kevin Holland do in the last fight. But the question becomes, man, 7 wins in the UFC, undefeated fighter. At what point does it become too much of a little bit of a step up for MVP to where he is reasonably and arguably should be the underdog in this fight?
We're right around that mark, Derick, and this one to me is more of a proven match to Garry, right? Because we know how good MVP is, and don't get me wrong, the future is legit, and he is a really good fighter, but this is one of those moments where he's going to come into the limelight, kind of show everybody exactly what he has, and this is almost a lose-lose, because you're right, you should, as Ian Garry, you should beat the guy that's 10 years older than you. You should be the guy that's 7 rankings below you. You should be beat the guy that just came into the UFC from another organization. But if he doesn't, then questions start rising up. And to that point, I mean, Michael Page, as much as he doesn't have all the intangibles that Ian Garry has, he has the one thing that is very hard to solve, and it's a puzzle. And nonetheless, it's a puzzle that's punching you in the face while you're going and while you're trying to figure it out. And as a karate style fighter, man, that makes it a very difficult timing situation. Nonetheless, organization, technical, all the stuff that goes into that. So there are some keys that Michael Page could win this fight. He just has a lot of cards stacked against him.
What about Ian Garry's, what is it about his kickboxing that you think could lend to having some success here against Michael Page? What makes him different from all the other guys who have tried and failed?
The output, Derick, output. If you're forcing a karate style fighter to continuously treat and not have that blitz, right, not have the distance management to control the range and actually do some damage, you're just forcing him into the corner. You're beating him up. You're walking him down. It's frustrating, man. Yeah. You're throwing a bunch of combos at him. That's what I see Ian Garry doing, and then working his way to the ground game somewhere, right? Clinch him up, put him down, whatever you need to do. Make this one a multifaceted style of fight that's going to lend itself to the future.
The one thing that MVP does really well is he manages distance, but I think that Ian Garry does something that Kevin Holland didn't do in his fight, and he has a much higher output of kicks specifically. I think if he can not just headhunt, because that's how it's the hardest to fight MVPs. You're just throwing big shots at his head, right? You're not going to hit him. Work the body, kick the legs, kick the body. And if you can mix up those targets through and through, I think that's, I'm not going to say we're going to find another Douglas Lima situation where you're going to kick him, he drops, and then you just clip him with an uppercut and knock him out. Like, I'm not going to say that that's what we're going to be finding, but I do think that you're going to be able to take away his mobility. And if you can take away the mobility, he's going to be an easier target to hit. Ian Garry, higher output, youth, vigor, cardio. I think that that's going to lend to the victory right here. I love me some MVP. I love the showman. I love the style, but I definitely think that gimmicks aside, because I'm not saying the character, again, of Ian Garry is what we're supporting here, but the fighter, he's the real deal, man, and he's shown it time and time again. Just don't get clipped, right? And easier said than done. But this is a Bloody Water Podcast consensus pick. Before we round out, we do need to talk about, do you take Ian Garry at minus 155 and say that's a price I'm happy to pay? Or do you say, let me dive into what a plus 185 decision prop is looking like, because I like that number right there, and I have a hard time seeing Ian Garry knocking out Michael Page clean.
I have a hard time seeing him knock him out clean, Derek. The one thing that does worry me is the ground game, right? If Ian Garry's able to get Michael Page down to the ground early when they're dry, I can see Garry having a lot of success right there. But I'm with you. I like that plus 185 a lot more, especially a lot more than a minus 150. But, I mean, it does come with some risks right there. I like the decision, though.
Let's not forget, too, Michael Page, he got taken down by Kevin Holland. Kevin Holland is a jiu-jitsu black belt, man. Don't disrespect. The man's got some jiu-jitsu chops. So the ability for him to survive that storm, if Ian Garry takes him down, it's not a surefire that he'll get submitted or anything like that. So again, Bloody Water Podcast consensus pick, Ian Machado Garry. That is going to be the play.